For those who don't know who I am, and there are many of you in the room who don't know who I am, according to Vince Sorrenti, who's Australia's leading comedian, he reckons that I look like the Greek version of George Clooney. I don't know why people are laughing, but if Vince Sorrenti says that I am, then I am. I'm not going to debate the issue with one of the best comedians in the world. But for those who don't think I look like the Greek version of George Clooney, that's fine. For those who think they do know me, my name is Paul Nicolau, and it gives me great pleasure as the Executive Director of Business Sydney to be your Master of Ceremonies here this evening in what is going to be a fantastic and a memorable evening. We are going to celebrate 100 years of the Greek Herald. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that amazing? Now, some of you may be saying, why am I wearing the scarf? Well, tonight is the night when the Blues hopefully will win against the Maroons. So I'm not sure whether you want me to keep you updated on the scores, but there are many of you that will probably want to leave and watch the game and find out who wins later on this evening. But I will, for those people, keep you in the loop in regards to this. But the most important event tonight is here in this Parliament, and that is we are celebrating 100 years of the Greek Herald. Isn't that fantastic? That is a fantastic milestone. Friends, can I take this opportunity firstly to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples as the traditional owners of the lands and the waterways in which we live, work, and recognise their continuing significance and connection to country. Today we're gathered on the land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and we pay our respects to elders past and present. We honour their stories, their traditions, living cultures of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, and commit to building a brighter future together. Now, could I just ask those at the back of the room if you can please be quiet while we're doing the speeches, if that's possible. You'll have plenty of time to network and kiss babies and shake hands in this wonderful institution later on. So please, if you can. Friends, today is a very special occasion. And if we didn't have the support of the Honourable Sophie Kotsis MP, who is hosting this evening function on behalf of the New South Wales Parliament, we thank Sophie Kotsis, the Minister, and we'll be hearing from her shortly. It seems like a Greek takeover. We have 300 people here in Parliament, but also I've got to acknowledge Angela Kikis, whose exhibition is in the Fountain Court, which was only launched just recently. And I encourage all of you, if you haven't been out to the Fountain Court, to see the wonderful artwork of Angela. I'm not sure if Angela's in the room. Is Angela in the room? Angela's here. Well done to you, Angela. And everyone is talking about it. But if you haven't seen it, please go outside and look at the wonderful paintings. And if you want a personalised painting done by you, speak to Angela. She's offering a 10% discount on her artwork. So feel free to reach out to Angela. We also, friends, can I take this opportunity to note that the paper is 100 years old and was first established in 1926 by George Marcellus, who was the publisher, and John Stilson, who was the editor, both of which are Catherians. And as we know, unfortunately, the Catherian AGM is on this evening. But again, we've got to hold the event. We're not always going to be perfect when it comes to picking the nights. But tonight is special, not only from the point of view of the Herald, but also with the Catherian Brotherhood who's holding their AGM this evening. Can I also mention the fact that the Greek Herald has for hundreds of years preserved the Greek language, the culture and identity across many generations, which is fantastic. But can I also acknowledge, and I'll go through some of the people who have joined us, the guests who've travelled all the way from Melbourne, Canberra and South Australia. All of you here this evening, and it's a special occasion for all of us, but some were unable to attend. The Prime Minister of Australia, Honourable Anthony Albanese, was unfortunate he couldn't attend this evening. The federal ministers, of a number of them were invited but unable to be here because they have to be down in Canberra because it's a federal sitting seat. And we've also got Dr. Stepan Kekasherin, who all of us know, who's unfortunate here can't be with us, but he's a pivotal pioneer of Australia's multiculturalism and anti-discrimination and ethnic broadcasting. So we acknowledge those that aren't here with us. Can I also take this opportunity to inform you that you'll be able to take home a copy of the 100-year edition, which is available tonight. And if you want Dimitra to sign it, she's happy to sign it personally. I'm going to get a copy signed by Dimitra, so I encourage you all. She'll be over there on the table there with her pen and willing to sign a copy. And that's going to be, you want to keep it for another 100 years with Dimitra's signature on there. All right? So also, can I also say to you that the copy's in Greek, but there's a QR code which is in the paper, and it will give you the English version, which is really important. Can I also ask all of you to use social media? And there is a media wall over to my left or to your right. I encourage you to go over there and have a photo with Dimitra. It should be over there as well for photographs. Is that right, Dimitra? You're going to be doing a lot of work this evening, Dimitra. People will take, Dimitra, I'm talking to you, sorry. They're going to have photographs with you as well over there, right? Okay, because you're the star attraction this evening. No politicians, no one else. You're the star attraction. Well, that's right, okay. And in Greek style, there's plenty of food and drink. And I know that Adriana and her team have been working closely with the kitchen here to make sure that we've got the best food tonight, which is fantastic. Okay, now, friends, on behalf of everyone involved in tonight's very special celebration, welcome and thank you all for joining us. Tonight we gather to commemorate and celebrate the Greek Herald's 100 year of contribution, history, culture, achievement and community spirit. A remarkable centenary milestone that honours generations of dedication, sacrifice and success. We're deeply honoured to be joined this evening by many representatives from the Governor, the government, diplomacy, faith, business, media and community leadership. Tonight is not about reflecting on the past, but it's also about celebrating the future generations who will continue this proud legacy in our wonderful country. We have a wonderful program ahead, including official addresses, commemorative reflections, special video messages, musical performance, and our ceremonial centenary celebration of cutting the 100-year cake. Ladies and gentlemen, can I take this opportunity to acknowledge a number of guests that have joined us here this evening. And I know all of you are important guests and all of you have played a significant role in our wonderful community. But I'd like to acknowledge the following. Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, AC and KC, Governor of New South Wales. Please welcome Her Excellency and Mr Beazley. Can I also acknowledge the High Commissioner of Cyprus, Mr Antonis Samoutis. Maybe what we might do is I'll mention them all and then we can give them a big round of applause. Can I also acknowledge the Honourable Sophie Kotsis MP, Parliamentary Host for this evening and State Minister for Industrial Relations. The Honourable Ron Honig, MP, State Minister for Local Government. The Honourable Courtney Houssis, MLC, State Minister for Finance. Ms Kelly Sloan, MP, Leader of the New South Wales Opposition. The Honourable Natalie Ward, MLC, Deputy Leader and Shadow Minister. Eleni Patinos, MP, Shadow Minister and State Member for Miranda. Mark Kure, MP, Shadow Minister and State Member for Oatley. The Consul General of Greece in Sydney, Mr George Skimperis. Mr Has Dalal AO, Chair of the Australian Multicultural Foundation. Joseph Laposta, CEO of Multicultural New South Wales. Justice Chrissy Lucas Carlson. Theo Zavaridis, the Deputy Chief of the Courts. Councillor Paula Marcellos of Waverley, Councillor Nick Catras from Georges River Council, Councillor Alexandra Luxford from Randwick City Council, Councillor Claire Raffin from Canterbury Council, Carrick Bankstown Council. Can I also acknowledge Bill Papastergiadis, OAM, who's come all the way from Melbourne, and we thank him for being here with us, the President of the Greek community of Melbourne, and it's great to see you. And feel free to stay in Sydney if you want. Sydney, we love Sydney, but we love Melbourne too. Yeah, we do. That's perfect. That's great to see. Can I also acknowledge Cosmas Dimitriou, who's the President of the Intercommunities Council of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia. And can I also acknowledge, and I probably went over it, His Grace, Bishop Christodoulos, who's here representing His Eminence Archbishop Makarios as well. There's Bank of Sydney representatives, community leaders, presidents and past presidents of communities and organisations and church groups. There's members of the media. There's also Peter Dukas, the Chair of the Ethnic Communities Council of New South Wales. Pina Gionis, who's representing the Greek community of South Australia, and everyone else. So please put your hands together and acknowledge all those people that are here with us today. There's also representatives from sporting. I didn't, Ron Honig. I acknowledge Ron Honig again. No, that's all right. All right. Where is Ron Honig? I didn't miss you, but welcome and thank you for joining us. But can I also acknowledge sporting representatives, Football Australia board members, representatives from schools and education, arts, cultural representatives, and our guests overseas. But also, can I acknowledge Dimitra's mum? Dimitra's mum. Mary. Where is Mary? Mary, you did a wonderful job in producing a wonderful child, and I know, and that's why there's 300 people here. They don't come here for the guest speakers, they've come here because of your daughter, but well done, Mary, and thank you for producing such a wonderful, wonderful child. Well, friends, it now gives me great pleasure, great pleasure, to call on Her Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, ACKC, the Governor of New South Wales, to officially commence tonight's proceedings. Please welcome Her Excellency Margaret Beazley, ACKC.
Paul, I've got to tell you, that comedian who said you look like George Clooney, he's Italian. I think those of you who know me, very happily I know many of you in the room tonight, so it's a great honour to be here. I will honour our traditional owners. They've been acknowledged, but I will honour them in their language. Budjeri Gamarua, Dian Babana Gamarada, Dian Gadagul Nura. In good old Aussie language, g'day everybody, and let's have a good time. So, what was it? 16th of November, 1926, and this newspaper rolled out for the very first time. And you'll see that there was this flaming torch in the middle, and that amazing statement which proclaimed this newspaper, very first edition, 8 pages only, as the leading Greek newspaper in Australasia. What a bold and prophetic claim for something that had only hit the streets that morning. But I guess it's Greek. Its aim was very simple. It was to enlighten the Greek community that had arrived here in what, in the language of the newspaper, as it said, this noble country. And I think everybody in this room would endorse that. And particularly it made reference to those who were more latterly arrived. It was a way of speaking of and to this particular community. And so that very first edition, the front page, the lead story was the state of affairs in Greece, which in November 1926, was not so brilliant. There was a new government, as you would know. It had just recently come out of the dictatorship. It was still getting over the war that sort of went well beyond the First World War and well into the early 1920s. There was a ray of hope because 2 days before this paper, the Hellenic Football Association was formed. And it started, of course, that great Greek tradition. So that was the lead story. The rest of the front page was filled with a series of advertisements, which included advertisements for dinner plates, sort of made sense, food, Greek, that sort of worked. Bacon, I still don't get that one. And then tonic wine, which I think was a euphemism for what was really going on. The other 7 pages were all in Greek, so I don't know what they said, because it's literally all Greek to me, I have to say. So that was the very first edition. The very same day, the Sydney Morning Herald, the 95-year-old Sydney Morning Herald, also ran out its edition for the day. Its lead stories were Prime Minister Bruce was going to London, and this was a big story. Women were taking flying lessons at Mascot Aerodrome, and the wool sales were right up. So this was quintessential Australian. And there were advertisements, but for cars and pianos. So very similar style, but just a slightly different emphasis. So 1926 Sydney. Just go back and imagine it. You know, men used to wear suits and hats as they walked down the street. Didn't matter where they were going. The women dressed well. On the 1st of March that year, 1926, the very first electric train in Sydney left Central Station at 7:54 a.m. Its destination, it was headed straight to the electorate of the Shadow Minister for Multicultural Affairs, Mark Curry. Went straight to Oakley. So that was the very first train. On the 16th, on the day of the publication, there was supposed to have been in this Parliament the second reading speech of a bill which had been put forward by Millicent Stanley Preston. She had been elected to the Parliament the year before, the very first woman to be elected to this Parliament. She had put forward a bill, and this was the first bill that was put forward by a female in this Parliament, for seeking equal custodial rights for women of their children. By some machination, not that I'd like to suggest that much machination goes on in this Parliament, but by some machination, that second reading speech never occurred. They managed to fill the agenda with other things. The Parliament was prorogued the next year, and it wasn't until 1934 that that bill raised its head again. The Rabbitohs won the premiership. They beat a university team they beat a team called University, which of course no longer exists. The score was 11-5. Now, they either had a different way of scoring or both teams scored a field goal. I can't work that one out, 11-5, but that was the score. So the Rabbitohs won the premiership that year, and the Sydney population reached 1 million people. But at that point of time, the Greek population was still quite small, a few thousand. However, in the next decade, your population, your community grew. It doubled in that time. And it was during that decade that this paper, which the Hellenic, then the Hellenic Herald, can I get this right? The Panhellenios, Greek, in that first decade, it established its ability and its reputation as it still retains, it was a newspaper from the inception directed to, as I said, to enlighten the local community. It was a newspaper which spoke to and about the Greek community here in Sydney. It spoke about Greek affairs, it spoke about local affairs. It really became a champion of the local people. My goodness, was it feisty from the very beginning. It took stances, political stances and internal political stances. It was a great supporter of... Hello. It was a great supporter of the anti-patriarchate. And but whichever way it went forward, might have been feisty, but its heart was always its essence. It was a deeply human paper in whatever stance that it took. So that was that decade. What was going on in Sydney in that decade? Well, Sydney also was changing and having its own problems. So if you think of that decade, 1926 to 1936, the Great Depression affected everybody, including our new migrants, and probably more so the new migrants than many. 1932, of course, the Harbour Bridge was opened. There were tolls on the Harbour Bridge then and now, but then there were tolls on the Harbour Bridge depending on how many sheep or cattle you took over with you. It was a different time. And then, of course, the Premier, of the day, Jack Lang, was dismissed by the governor. I've talked about the machinations. Now, how did Jack Lang take this? I think everybody in this room will remember the image of Gough Whitlam down in Canberra and how he reacted to it. Well, Jack Lang just locked himself into the cabinet room and stayed there for 4 days until the newly appointed Premier got some locksmiths in and went open their gates. So that was the first decade. But as we've heard, this is not about a newspaper which is a decade old. This is about a newspaper which is a century old. And throughout that time, it has enlightened the Greek community, it has enraged the Greek community, it has divided everybody else when it could. It's been sued. I know. I sat on a case. That's recuse myself. And no, look, at least I've announced my conflict of interest, all right? But not only once. But again, to me, you know, coming from the meek and mild Irish sort of, you know, background, you know, the Republicans and all of those, do you know it was an Irishman who committed the first attempted assassination in New South Wales? You've just got to know these histories, so that's my Irish background. But anyway, a century later, what are you doing? You're no longer using that metal printer in that basement in Oxford Street. You are a multimedia, bilingual, multimedia national company, newspaper. You are the only Greek newspaper outside of Greece itself, as a daily newspaper, and certainly the only one in Australia. And that's an amazing heritage. So I think to those founders, to George Massalos and to John Stilson, they started something which is very special, not only in the Greek community, but this is how communities inform themselves, support themselves, and become part of this greater noble nation that was referred to in that very first publication. So congratulations, 100 years. It is absolutely marvellous.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, and well done. No notes. So it was very impressive. And again, please put your hands together and thank Her Excellency for your gracious words and your ongoing support of multicultural communities in our wonderful state. But can I thank you and Mr. Wilson, Dennis Wilson, for both of you being here. You could have been at the game, right? You could be in our house watching the game on television, but we really thank you very much for coming this evening and joining us. 7:50, yeah, right, okay. In 1 hour's time. Okay, so you might sneak off and go home. But Mr. Wilson, wherever you are, thank you very much for your ongoing support, because Her Excellency wouldn't be able to do the job without you. So wherever you are, Dennis, well done to you, and thank you. Thank you. Friends, it now gives me great pleasure to call on the Honourable Sophie Kotsis MP, representing the Honourable Chris Minns MP, Premier of New South Wales, and the Minister is the one who is hosting us here, so please behave and don't do anything silly, otherwise the Minister will have to deal with the repercussions of any silly actions. So please put your hands together and welcome the Honourable Sophie Kotsis, Minister for Industrial Relations in our wonderful state.
Thank you. Thanks, Paul. Thank you, Paul. Thanks, Paul, for being here. I know that you also have duties out at the stadium, and it's great to have you here in the New South Wales Parliament. And thank you for your wonderful introductory remarks, and also being a very passionate Helene, but also we're very proud of you as the CEO of Business Sydney, the strong advocacy, but also as part of that, We see all the work that you do representing many Greek companies and the trade between Australia and Greece. Now, for all the lawyers in the room, I'm not a lawyer, and so Your Excellency, you probably will will sort of carve me up a bit because I haven't prepared very well, but I tried in my studious way to go back to the Parliamentary Library and go back and do some research of my own. So I spent the last couple of days, even though we're sitting, I've spent the last couple of days just going back to the archives of what the New South Wales Parliament holds with respect to the Greek Herald, the Neo Patrida, and a number of other publications. So I found some very interesting archives, but before I get into the history, I too would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to elders past, present, and emerging. And it is such an honour to be a member of Parliament, but also a member of the government, a member of the Min's government, and representing the government here today. It is my honour at the anniversary, the 100th anniversary of a newspaper which makes a significant impact to Australian journalism, the Greek diaspora, and of course multicultural Australia. I would like to acknowledge many special guests who are here today, and including those who've travelled from interstate, including Bill and many others. But who would have thought 100 years ago, fast forward to 2026, we'd be here, a very large Greek presence here in the oldest parliament of Australia, here in New South Wales Parliament. But also, who would have thought that a young woman would be the owner of one of the largest publications? So a huge congratulations to you, Dimitra Skalkos, for your hard work, your advocacy, your determination. But also, back then in 1926, it wouldn't even be a speckle or a thought that one day we would have a woman leading this amazing national publication, but also getting into the digital age, and the work that you have done, Dimitra, you and to your staff who have been incredible in making sure that there is engagement with our youth and the young people. I want to thank, of course, Your Excellency for that wonderful speech. Your Grace, it's great to see you here in the New South Wales Parliament. Thank you very much. Consul General, Mr. Yorgos Gemberis, and also for the consulate. We celebrate 100 years as well. And we also celebrate 100 years of the Hellenic Club. So we have this troika of Hellenism, and it's something special about 1926. And here we are in 2026. Those institutions are still here. We have many of you, all of you, in fact, who are in positions in Australia and New South Wales, that you will always do everything humanly possible to ensure that our democracy is not challenged, our freedom, our liberty, and that is why these institutions matter. I want to acknowledge the High Commissioner of Cyprus, Mr. Andonis Samoutis. Thank you, High Commissioner. I also have my parliamentary colleagues here, Minister Courtney Houssos, who's here with us and a very big supporter of the Greek Herald, Mr. Ron Honig, Minister for Local Government, Natalie Ward, Opposition Spokeswoman, Eleni Petinos, Opposition Spokeswoman, Mark Kure, Opposition Spokesperson, and we also have the Leader of the Opposition, Ms. Kelly Sloan, who will be speaking as well. I hope I haven't missed any of my colleagues. We also have members of the judiciary here, the diplomatic corps, many business people, young people, local government councillors, and we also have, I understand, from Mr. Leberdas a message, and also from former Prime Minister Mr. Howard as well. So I want to just start off back in 1926, the Greek Herald has been, since its founding, the Greek Herald has been a pillar of the Greek Australian community for 100 years. The Herald has contributed to Australian society and the life of Greek Australians. In the post-war years, many new Greek and Cypriot arrivals came to Australia. Just down the road from here, there have been thousands and thousands of Greeks who have come right probably about a kilometre down the road with nothing but their suitcase and the struggles ahead and the anguish, the darkness of leaving their families, and particularly under very tragic circumstances. And for those Greek and Cypriot migrants, for them, they wouldn't have even imagined at that time. They just, the voyage to get to Australia, the voyage to come here. For many, they would not have even imagined. It was hard work, and it was to build their family, to ensure that they practice their faith. And many of our local parishes have been established since the 1890s. And faith was very important, faith and family. Now, for those migrants coming to Australia, didn't speak English, and the Greek Herald became a lifeline. The Herald was not just the connection to the Greek diaspora, but a connection to broader Australia. The Greek language reported on jobs, on job ads, current affairs, and Australian sport meant that new Australians could truly become part of our nation. And the Greek Herald has been photographed in the hands of Greek Australian soldiers in the Pacific Theatre and discovered in abandoned homes in Greece and in Cyprus. Its impact is not confined to our shores. It's a worldwide success story of all Australians, but especially Hellenic Australians, that can all be proud of. Now, I just wanted to, as was stated by Her Excellency, that when the Greek Herald was established in November of 1926, the Telegraph in Brisbane, on the Thursday, the 25th of November, 1926, page 16, reported the Hellenic Herald. We have received the first copy of the Hellenic Herald, a journal published in Sydney to enlighten our fellow countrymen, the Greeks, in this noble country. The journal seeks to educate and claims to be non-partisan, its watchword being truth, right, and justice for all. After dealing with the glories of ancient Greece, the leading article refuses the allegations that Greece is declining. Greece is a wonderful country, it says, and for a small nation to have kept all honourable positions, though surrounded by enemies, without any outside help, it is not an insignificant feat. That was just a small article back in a few days or a few weeks after the Greek Herald was established in 1926. So also through my research through the archives, with respect to what was stated earlier about suing and libeling, and may I say that this was not a new phenomena about 20 or 30 years ago. There were some of the first that I found. There were two things that I found. This is back in 1933. Dispute over church affairs. Newspaper owner sued. Now, history repeating itself, but we have moved beyond that. But there were a number of those disputes back in the 30s and 40s with respect to defamation cases and suing. But can I say to everyone here that we are absolutely very proud that this publication continues and it is going gangbusters. You have all done a phenomenal job. And the Greek Herald today is not just a way for new Australians to connect, it's also a way for the children of the diaspora to connect to their heritage with an English language website with over 40,000 monthly visits, an English Facebook with thousands and thousands of followers, and it's also a link to important events. The Greek Herald serves as a source of cultural pride with its successes and the way it promotes many people in the community. I want to say that if you look around this room, you see over that period of 100 years, the hard work of our the ancestors, our parents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, but those who just a kilometre down the road, who stepped off at the passenger terminal with their one suitcase and got a job the next day, whether it was in a factory or going up to the north coast to go to the cane fields, or whether they were part of building the bridge, or whether they were part of building New South Wales and building Australia. This is the result, and it was the dream, but it exceeded the dream. And to see tonight that the Greek Herald, part of that 100 years, where not only have you got members of the judiciary that are of Greek background, or in the legal profession, or business people, or people who are small business entrepreneurs, farmers. In every aspect of our society, you will see Greek Australians, but you will see the Greek Herald there by their side. And I wish the Greek Herald all its success. Happy birthday, congratulations, and it's great to see you here and everyone else. Have a great night tonight.
Thank you, Minister, and all your support and the work that you do, and thank you for also supporting this evening's event by hosting us here this evening. So thank you, and thank you for the work that you do, not only for your local community, but as a role as Minister for Industrial Relations. Please put your hands together again to acknowledge our Minister and the wonderful work that she does. Can I also, before I call on our next speaker, we've got representatives from the Indian, Jewish, Vietnamese and Italian newspapers that are here as well. Could I also acknowledge Councillor Harris Strangus, who's a councillor on Southern Shire Council, and I should have acknowledged also the President of the Greek Orthodox Community of New South Wales, Con Apoifis. So please put your hands together and welcome them as well. Friends, it now gives me great pleasure to call on the leader, the New South Wales Liberal leader here in New South Wales, the Honourable Kelly Sloan MP, to say a few words. Please put your hands together and welcome Kelly Sloan.
Thank you so much, Paul Nicolau, and particularly for the opportunity for me to hug strangers tonight. We don't have a lot of hugging here in State Parliament, but there definitely should be more of it. So Kalispera, welcome, good evening. It is so wonderful to be amongst you, Your Excellency, Your Grace, all of my parliamentary colleagues. I won't name you all again, because if there's one thing I know about the Greek community, it is that you are great talkers. You've been talkers for millennia, and I want to give you the opportunity to do that tonight. I also wanted to say to Minister Kotsis, I also did a little bit of digging, and I think it's super interesting that back in the 30s, the Greek Herald did report that our parliamentary democracy here was weak and chaotic. Now, I would say that our democracy in defence of this system is very strong today, but it is often, as my colleagues would know, quite chaotic, particularly for those in the upper house this week. So that is an enduring theme, but you have also reported on different ups and downs, including wonderful democracy brought to Greece. And yours is a story of wonderful storytelling, a century of storytelling, 100 years of connecting community to faith and to identity, of celebrating the triumph and the tribulations of the Australian Greek community. And the Greek Herald stands testament to the strength of our diverse state, and it remains the only Greek language daily newspaper published outside of Greece and Cyprus. And Dimitra, I want to thank you in particular for your stewardship today, a century later. What a proud tradition that you're holding on your shoulders, and may you never be sued on your watch. Congratulations. because under your leadership, you've remained deeply grounded in community here. And I love some of the work that you've done in particular around Woman of the Year and Woman to Watch awards. The paper is not just reporting on the community, it's helping shape the future of our community with great pride. I also want to acknowledge all the people who've travelled from South Australia and from Melbourne, those wonderful, vibrant Greek Australian communities. And we all know that the Greek community in Australia is in many ways the story of modern Australia itself, a story of aspiration, of family, of hard work, and of the enduring power of these words that we all know, that we are one, but we are many. And the importance of papers like the Greek Herald cannot be underestimated. And as someone who has spent the largest part of her career as a journalist, I pay tribute to storytelling and its importance. Its importance for that great, not weak democracy of ours in Australia, its importance in bringing communities together, and the love that you have created is demonstrated in this room. So enjoy, congratulations, and happy birthday on behalf of my colleagues in the Liberals and Nationals.
Thank you, Kelly Sloan, for those lovely words and your thoughtful support of Dimitra and the Hellenic Herald, the Greek Herald, but also for the work that you do in the community. And can I also ask that you pass on our sincere thanks to Natalie Ward, the Deputy Leader who's joined us here this evening, and Lenny Patinos as well for joining us here this evening. Friends, I could also acknowledge another minister who's joined us here, and that's the Honourable Courtney Housas, MP, the Finance Minister here in New South Wales. So please welcome Courtney Housas here this evening. Thank you very much for joining us. Friends, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, faith and tradition have always played a central role in our community and our identity. And it now gives me great pleasure and honour to introduce and welcome to the stage Your Grace Bishop Christodoulos, who's representing the primate of the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia, His Eminence Archbishop Makarios. Please welcome Your Grace to the stage.
Your Excellency, the Honourable Margaret Beazley, Governor of New South Wales, Ms Sophie Cotters, Minister for Industrial Relations and Work Health and Safety, Ms Kelly Sloan, MP, Leader of the Opposition, Members of Parliament, Mr Donis Samoutis, High Commissioner of Cyprus, Mr Georgios Skemberis, Consul General of Greece in Sydney, Ms Dimitra Skalkos, Publisher and Managing Director, guests, brothers and sisters in the Lord. With joy, we are all gathered here to celebrate a historical milestone, 100 years of service and contribution to the life of Hellenism in Australia. Reaching 100 years of continuous daily publication is an extraordinary achievement. Since its inception in 1926, the Greek Herald has served as a source of journalism that has coincided the life and work of our communities around Australia. The Greek Herald stands as a witness to the struggles, aspirations, resilience and achievements of all Hellenes across Australia and the living legacy of our cultural heritage here in our blessed country. On behalf of His Eminence, Archbishop Makarios of Australia, I take this opportunity to congratulate Ms. Dimitra Skalkos, Managing Director, together with her team, for the unwavering commitment to keeping our Greek Australian community informed, inspired, and deeply proud of its heritage. Dimitra, may God bless you and your team. May God guide you in your work, granting strength, wisdom, and continued success. Σας ευχαριστώ πολύ.
Thank you very much, Your Grace, and please pass on our best wishes to His Eminence for the work that he and your colleagues are doing in our community. It is valuable, very important, and great having His Eminence Archbishop Makarios leading the flock in our wonderful country. Thank you. Friends, it now gives me great pleasure to invite His Excellency, the High Commissioner of Cyprus to Australia, Mr. Antonis Samoutis, to the stage. Please welcome His Excellency.
Your Grace, Your Excellency, Mr. Consul General, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Members of the State Parliament, dear compatriots, dear Dimitra, it gives me indeed a great pleasure to extend my warmest congratulations to the Greek Herald on the remarkable occasion of 100 years since the first publication, and to commend the administration, the editors, the journalists and staff for their long-standing and valuable contribution. From the very first moment I assumed my duties back in 2022, I recognized that Greek Herald has been serving with dedication the information needs of the Greek and Cypriot communities across Australia. Its journalists and photojournalists were present at every important community initiative and event, faithfully covering the activities, achievements, but also the problems and concerns of our diaspora. At the same time, the newspaper has maintained a strong and continuous presence in covering major international developments, events in Australia, and of course the most significant developments in Cyprus and Greece. Particularly noteworthy is the newspaper's bilingual character. By publishing in both Greek and English, the Greek Herald succeeds in reaching all generations of the diaspora, while at the same time it reminds us of the enduring importance of preserving and cultivating our Greek language and cultural heritage to future generations. Also admirable is the successful continuation of the print edition alongside the dynamic and high-quality digital presence of the newspaper and its website, reflecting the ability to evolve with the times while remaining faithful to its historic mission. On this special milestone, I once again extend my heartfelt wishes to the Greek Herald for many more years of creativity, success, and meaningful contribution in its second century of service. I also wish to express my sincere appreciation for the opportunity it continues to offer to me personally through its pages to communicate with the diaspora and to follow with pride its progress, achievements, and contribution to multicultural Australia. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for your kind words, warm remarks, and your continued work and friendship that you play in our community. So thank you very much. Well, friends, it now gives me great pleasure to call on the Consul General, our very own Consul General in Greece, here in Sydney, Mr. George Skimperis, to say a few words. Please put your hands together and welcome the Consul General of Greece in Sydney.
Your Excellency, Honourable Ministers, Honourable Leader of the Opposition, Your Grace, I know you're all quite tired by now, so I won't take a lot of time. Dear Paul, if you look like George Clooney, then I look like Russell Crowe. But in The Gladiator, not now, maybe now minus 50 kilos. So, you know, in multilateral diplomacy, because I have served in an international organization, you have, let's say, 15 different countries around the table, and because we all need to speak and not to take a lot of time, usually when we agree with the previous speaker, we say, Your Honor, I fully align myself with... So I fully align myself today with Sophie Kochis. She made an amazing speech. Please, a round of applause for Sophie. She discovered an inner historian But I would like to steal from you, or you stole from me, but it doesn't matter, the fact that apart from the Greek Herald, the consulate celebrates 100 years and the club, and that means that Hellenism celebrates 100 years in Sydney. And that says everything about the depth of the Greek presence in New South Wales. As I said, I'm not going to take a lot of time, so I just want to make 2 points. We all know what the achievements of Greek Herald and its importance, especially the first decades for the migrants who came here. They didn't speak the language. They had a newspaper who was their guide, their supporter, their like compass in finding their way in this foreign land. But I think the brightest page of the Herald came when democracy was really rigged in Greece, and I'm talking about the dictatorship. So for 7 years, we experienced something that for us, the Greeks, carries a lot of weight. You haven't experienced this here, and I wish you never will, your democracy to be shredded into pieces and to have constitutional disorder. And these were difficult times, and Herald, and I know it very well because I did my own research for 100 years of the consulate. Herald was heroic. It supported democracy in Greece. It opposed the dictatorship in Greece. And that was not τζάμπα μπανγκιά, όπως λέμε στα ελληνικά, because it came to the expense of the Greek Herald. I know that in just in a couple of months, the Herald lost 30% of its income from advertising because of pressure from the government. And Dimitra, this is very important to hear it from a consul. Yeah. So they stood their ground, they defended democracy, and eventually the dictatorship lasted for 7 years, while the Herald lasted for 100 years. So 107, if that was a rugby match, it would be definitely a landslide victory for the Herald. And my second and last point is that I want to really express my huge admiration for Dimitra, because I know from my family's experience how hard it is for a young woman in her late 20s to take over such a big institution with a very heavy legacy. So Dimitra, you should know, whenever I think about you, I think of this mythical giant Atlas who was carrying the world on his shoulders. He was a little bit bigger than you, but we can see that you are doing great job. So you are a hero, and I hope that you will carry on keeping the flag high for Greece and for democratic values. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell Crowe. Consul General. Yes. I wonder which comedian said that you look like George. No. Anyway, can I thank you, Consul General? You're doing such a wonderful job, and it's commendable, everything that you're doing and everything that you have been doing since you've arrived here in Australia, especially in Sydney. And we're very lucky to have you, because I know the president of the Greek Orthodox community in Melbourne would love to have you down there, but we've got you. You are ours, and we love you very much, right? So thank you very much. Well, friends, I'm now, and if I can ask the people right at the back of the room, please, and I apologise, I don't mean to be rude, but I just want to read out 2 important messages that came to Dimitra just recently, only in the last few days, and there's a message from the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Anthony Albanese. Dear Dimitra and family and friends, congratulations to everyone at the Greek Herald on 100 years of publication. That is an achievement that is every bit as extraordinary as it is rare. Generation after generation, the Greek Herald has been a trusted source of information and entertainment, and an important cultural resource for Australians of Greek and Cypriot heritage. It has chronicled and enriched the life of readers, and in the process added to the strength of the community and the cohesion of our nation. At its founding, the Greek Herald was a pioneer in supporting migrants beginning a new life in the new land. As the community has evolved, so has the publication, shaping and being shaped by the diverse stories of its readers. The story of Greek Australians is one of energy, hard work, admiration, aspiration and inspiration. And just that story is at the heart of who we are as a modern nation. The Greek Herald has been integral to telling that. So much has changed since the first copy rolled off the presses in 1926. But the Greek Herald endures because, like all truly great newspapers, it remains deeply connected to its readers and to the broader community it serves. To all the staff and supporters of the Greek Herald, past and present, I thank you for your magnificent contribution, not only to journalism, but to the strength and richness of Australia. May the Greek Herald remain a valued source of interest, information, connection, as well as advocacy and support to the bicentenary and beyond. Congratulations, yours sincerely, the Prime Minister of Australia, the Honourable Anthony Albanese MP. Now for a message from the Prime Minister of Greece, the Honourable Kyriakos Mitsotakis. Dear members of the Greek diaspora, fellow countrymen and countrywomen, I feel particular joy and emotion that the Greek Herald this year completes 100 years of presence in Australia. It's an anniversary which not only proves the brilliant course of the diaspora media outlet, but above all underlines the remarkable achievements of the Greek diaspora in the fifth continent. The uniqueness of the Greek Herald lies in the role it played and continues to play, to be the voice of the homeland for our compatriots abroad. Through its journalistic record, the arrival and the settlement of Greek migrants in Australia, the development of communities, the establishment of schools, churches and associations, as well as the participation of Greek Australians in the social, political, economic and multicultural life of the country, which have been documented. Today, with the publication in both languages, Greek and English, in print as well as digital form, the Greek Herald continues to record current affairs in Greece and as Australia, to document the course of the Greek communities of Australia, the preservation of the Greek language, historical memory, as well as the evolution of the Greek Australian identity over time. I'd like to congratulate the publishers, Dimitra Skalkos, and to wish both her and her colleagues every success in the continuation of their work. May the Greek Herald continue to constitute a living bond between Greece and Australia. Thank you. Yours sincerely, the Prime Minister of Greece. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to now play a video message from the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Greece, Mr. Yannis Leverdos, who's on the screen now.
Αξιότιμη κύριε Γενική Πρόξενε, αξιότιμοι προσκεκλημένοι, αγαπητά μέλη της ελληνικής ομογένειας, συμπατριώτες και συμπατριώτισσες. Με ιδιαίτερη συγκίνηση απευθύνομαι σήμερα στο εκλεκτό ακροατήριο που συγκεντρώθηκε στο Κοινοβούλιο της Νέας Νότιας Ουαλίας για να τιμήσει ένα σπουδαίο ορόσημο για την ελληνική ομογένεια της Αυστραλίας αλλά και για τη δημοσιογραφία. Τη συμπλήρωση 100 ετών αδιάλειπτης εκδοτικής παρουσίας του ελληνικού κήρυκα στην Αυστραλία. Σε μια εποχή συνεχών αλλαγών, όπου και το τοπίο των μέσων μαζικής ενημέρωσης μεταβάλλεται διαρκώς, το γεγονός ότι μια ελληνική εφημερίδα εκδίδεται επί έναν ολόκληρο αιώνα αποτελεί αξιομνημόνευτο επίτευγμα. Παράλληλα, η εκατονταετής παρουσία του ελληνικού κήρυκα αποδεικνύει ότι ο επαγγελματισμός, η αφοσίωση στην ενημέρωση και η προσήλωση στην παροχή έγκυρης πληροφόρησης στους Έλληνες ομογενείς αποτελούν αξίες που αναγνωρίζονται από το αναγνωστικό κοινό. Ένας αιώνας παρουσίας δεν είναι απλώς ένας αριθμός. Είναι η ιστορία της ελληνικής παρουσίας στην Αυστραλία. Η ιστορία των διμερών σχέσεων μεταξύ της Ελλάδος και της Αυστραλίας. Είναι η δημοσιογραφική καταγραφή ιστορικών γεγονότων, αλλά και η αποτύπωση της ιστορικής μνήμης ελληνικής ομογένειας. Επιπλέον, είναι η διάσωση του αποτυπώματος των εμπειριών, των προσδοκιών και των επιτευγμάτων των Ελλήνων που μετανάστευσαν σε αυτή τη μακρινή ήπειρο. ο ελληνικός κήρυκας, αποτέλεσε από την πρώτη στιγμή κάτι πολύ περισσότερο από μια εφημερίδα. Υπήρξε φάρος ενημέρωσης και φορέας συνοχής ελληνικής κοινότητας, καταγράφοντας τις μικρές αλλά και τις μεγάλες στιγμές των ομογενών, τις χαρές, τις δυσκολίες, τις επιτυχίες και τις προκλήσεις τους. Στις σελίδες του υποτυπώθηκαν γεγονότα που σημάδεψαν την παγκόσμια και ελληνική ιστορία και παράλληλα καταγράφηκε η ζωή και η πορεία των Ελλήνων μεταναστών, αποτελώντας με αυτόν τον τρόπο πολύτιμο τεκμήριο της ιστορίας της ελληνικής διασποράς στην Αυστραλία. Για πολλές γενιές, ο ελληνικός κήρυκας απετέλεσε τον συνδετικό κρίκο με την πατρίδα. Έφερε την Ελλάδα πιο κοντά σε όσους βρίσκονταν χιλιάδες χιλιόμετρα μακριά. Διατήρησε ζωντανή τη γλώσσα, την παράδοση και την πολιτιστική κληρονομιά. Ταυτόχρονα, το γεγονός ότι εκδίδεται και στην ελληνική γλώσσα άνοιξε το δρόμο για την συμμετοχή των ομογενών στη δημόσια ζωή της Αυστραλίας, ενισχύοντας τον διάλογο, την δημοκρατία και την πολυπολιτισμική συνύπαρξη. Σήμερα, ένα αιώνα μετά, η αποστολή του παραμένει το ίδιο ουσιαστική, ίσως θα έλεγα και πιο απαιτητική. Ο ελληνικός κήρυκας συνεχίζει να εξελίσσεται, να ενημερώνει, να ενώνει. Με την δίχως παρουσία του στην ελληνική και την αγγλική γλώσσα, αγκαλιάζει τόσο τις παλιότερες όσο και τις νεότερες γενιές των Ελλήνων μεταναστών, διασφαλίζοντας τη συνέχεια και την ενδυνάμωση της ελληνικής ταυτότητάς τους. Αγαπητές φίλες και φίλοι, απευθύνομαι σήμερα σε εσάς με την ιδιότητα του Υφυπουργού Εξωτερικών αρμόδιου για θέματα πόδιμου ελληνισμού και γι' αυτόν τον λόγο εστίασα στη σημασία της εκατονταετούς παρουσίας του ελληνικού κήρυκα στην εκδοτική σκηνή της Αυστραλίας για την ελληνική ομογένεια και τη διατήρηση της ελληνικής συνείδησης. Ωστόσο, έχοντας υπηρετήσει με δεκαετίες στη δημοσιογραφία, αισθάνομαι ότι η σημερινή εκδήλωση είναι μια ευκαιρία όχι μόνο για απολογισμό, αλλά και για έκφραση ευγνωμοσύνης προς όλους εκείνους που εργάστηκαν με αφοσίωση όλα αυτά τα χρόνια. Εκδότες, δημοσιογράφους, συνεργάτες της εφημερίδας. Είχα μάλιστα τη χαρά να γνωρίσω την εκδότρια της εφημερίδας, την κυρία Δήμητρα Σκάκος, και θα ήθελα να τη συγχαρώ προσωπικά για την εξαιρετική υπηρεσία που προσφέρει στη δημοσιογραφία, συνεχίζοντας με επαγγελματισμό και αφοσίωση την έκδοση της ιστορικής αυτής εφημερίδας. Δεν μπορώ επίσης να μην εξάρω την προσφορά της προς την ελληνική ομογένεια, καθώς διατηρεί ζωντανή την ελληνική γλώσσα και τους δεσμούς με την ελληνική επικαιρότητα. Εύχομαι ο ελληνικός κήρυκας να συνεχίσει για πολλά ακόμα χρόνια να γράφει ιστορία, αποτυπώνοντας την επικαιρότητα στην Ελλάδα και στη μακρινή μας Αυστραλία, που την νιώθουμε όμως τόσο κοντά, και προβάλλοντας όλα όσα ενώνουν τις δύο πατρίδες μας. Τη χώρα που τόσο φιλόξενα σας υποδέχτηκε και σας επέτρεψε να προοδεύσετε. Σας ευχαριστώ.
Thank you, Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, for your wonderful message. Friends, it now gives me great pleasure to also play another video from one of Australia's most respected national leaders, the Honourable John Howard OM AC, former Prime Minister of Australia.
100 years of the Greek Herald in Australia. Greeks have made a massive contribution to the modern Australia. In their hundreds of thousands, indeed millions, they have brought a special character and vibrancy to such places as Melbourne, often talked about as one of the great Greek cities of the world. The Greek Herald has the largest circulation of any Greek language newspaper outside Greece or Cyprus. And this is an opportunity not only to remark upon its special contribution, but also to express the thanks of a community for the way in which the Greeks have integrated into our society, brought their special blend to Australianism, but also, of course, in the process, have not lost sight of the country of their birth. I thank them, and I thank the contribution they have made to the modern Australia.
Thank you to the former Prime Minister, the Honourable John Howard. Well, friends, a person who travelled far to join us this evening, someone we're all proud of, regardless of the fact that he is in Melbourne and forget the fact that he's also the president of the Greek community in Melbourne, but someone who is passionate, someone who is committed, someone who is dedicated, someone who is hardworking and makes us proud in the motherland whenever he appears on television in the motherland. It gives me great, great pleasure to welcome Bill Papastethyavis OAM to Sydney, but also to be with us this evening to celebrate this important milestone. And it is with kara and with pride that it gives me great pleasure to call on Bill to the stage to say a few words. Please put your hands together and give the Sydney applause to our dear friend from Melbourne.
That was a real hug, it wasn't a video. And George Clooney, Russell Crowe, and I got Nick Giannopoulos' nose, so it's not a good outcome for me. I think I'm the big loser out of all of that. To the Governor, Bishop, our ministers, the Consul General, His Excellency from Cyprus, to so many friends, I'm going to be pretty quick as well, to so many friends who've come so far from Manly and Balmain. I came from Toorak on my own private jet, of course. No. So, Dimitra wanted me to say a few words about the impact of the newspaper in Melbourne through community, through sport, through law, through a variety of interests that I have. But I thought this newspaper is quite personal. And also, may I say, as a lawyer and the lawyer for the Greek Herald, being the National Chairman of Moray and Agnew Lawyers, I'm not punting for work here. May you be sued often, but I can assure you we will win every case with solicitor-client costs. I can assure you of that, Dimitra. But I thought I might touch on the personal, because the Greek Herald, it's not just a Greek newspaper. It's a communities connector. And this is a Melbourne story that I want to share with you, because I recently moved the other day into a new suburb, and my first journey as part of being in a new home was to find a local cafe and a news agency for my daily fix, caffeine and the Greek Herald. Now, I moved into a suburb that's largely Anglo-Saxon. I made my way and I did find the cafe pretty quickly. Next door was a very small news agency. Now, I had a look inside. They had the Australian, they had the Herald, they had the Age. I couldn't see a Greek newspaper. I approached the young Asian lady, Chinese lady that was running the shop with her husband. They were recent arrivals from China. And I said to her, "Can you please order the Greek Herald for me?" And she looked at me quizzically and said, "Greek paper? Here? Australia?" And I said, "Yes, every day." And she said, "I'll try." The next day when I arrived I went and got my coffee and I walked in and to say a quick hello to the news agency and see if anything had arrived. I got greeted as I walked in with, "Kalimera Bill, I have it." I went, "Wow." And as I exited, she said to me, and this is very true, "Yasso Bill, Yasso." Now, it's quite touching actually because she's so sweet. Now, Ms. Amy Gu, Ms. Amy Gu is now an expert in the Greek community of Melbourne and all of its affairs. How? Because largely before I even get to the news agency, she's already trawled through all of the papers looking for a photograph of me, and now I've been in one or two photographs. And what does that do for her? She proceeds to say to me, "What's this? Who's that? What's happening in your community?" She's so interested. Now, my next story again talks about the Greek Herald and again about photos. One of my close friends, his father, who was 93, passed away recently. And I visited the home to pay my respects. That is the father's home. And as I walked in, and it's an old Greek home with photos of, the 60s and the 70s, I walked past the kitchen. And there's a Laminex table there, and the father's friends, all in their mid-80s, were sitting down. And I walked past, had a quick look, kept walking on, I hear, "Broidre, helado." And I thought, oh, he must be talking to me. I walked in, and he wasn't asking me, he ordered me. So I walked in, he goes, "Katse, katse." And I sat down, we started having a conversation about what's going on in the community. It wasn't actually a conversation, I was being told about what's going on in the Greek community. And this, that, the other, and I was given advice left, right and centre about what to do. All of it good advice, I must assure you of that. There was a Greek Herald sitting on the Labour next table with another Greek newspaper as well, Untold, that one. And we were talking. And then one of them looked down the newspaper, opened it, and saw a story on the Greek community of Melbourne. And lo and behold, there's a little photograph of me in a corner there as well, beside that story. This elderly gentleman looked at me and he went, looked at the newspaper, looked up at me, looked down again, looked up at me, and said, "Proedre, you look better in the photos in the newspaper than you do in person." It's a great compliment. I don't know, not so sure. But this is the moral of the story. The story is that the Greek Herald sits in the homes and is part of us. It sits in our homes. It lives and breathes with us in life and afterlife. And that's so important. And more so because it connects all the communities where I believe the mainstream press has left us behind these days. And it has brought me closer to Ms. Amy Gu and her culture, where we now on a daily basis exchange ideas, traditions and values. And this is the essence of a truly connected community, where our differences don't just sit side by side, but they start shaping and interacting a shared local identity. So to Dimitra, I say thank you. To your father, your late father, I say thank you. I did spend some really great times with your father. Even weeks before his death, he came to Melbourne. He asked me to meet him at Vanilla for lunch. He sat down next to me and he said to me, Andras. I said, I don't know. Type of a question is that? I go, yeah. He goes, and he started tapping his feet. With my hand, of course, because he grabbed it and smashed my hands on his thigh. And he goes, I'm a tough man. And he was. He was a very strong man that I admired enormously. So your newspaper has been your dream and your life. And I want to say thank you for sharing those dreams, because it's become part of our life. And I want to say also a welcome to the Consul General. Thank you very much, everyone.
Coming up and joining us here this evening. It's greatly appreciated, because you could have been down there doing other things, but you decided to come and support the newspaper and thank Dimitra for her contribution. So thank you very much. Thank you. Friends, tonight's celebration would not be complete without reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the Greek community over the past century. To provide that historical reflection, please welcome one of Australia's foremost historians and scholars of Hellenism, Professor Anastasios Tamas. Please put your hands together and welcome the Professor to the lecture.
Esteemed Assembly, the Greek Herald was a vital source of information, didactic admonition, a dignity booster for Greek immigrants, a school of learning of the Greek language. The very first Greek correspondence school lessons began in the Herald in 1961. A center for the protection of immigrants against mistreatment and xenophobia, against racism and obsession. It was a mighty river of knowledge with its infinite tributaries flowing into every Greek home in urban centers, in villages and towns, in cafes, and in places where the Greeks used to assemble. The Herald stood for the fighting Anzacs, greeting with emotions the self-denial sacrifice of hundreds of Australians and New Zealanders who fell on the fronts of Macedonia and Crete. It recorded the graves where the Greek land keeps their dead bodies forever today. The Herald triumphed together with the mainstream Australian papers the very first victory, the first triumph of the Greeks in the Albanian mountains against the fascists and the Nazis, defeating them which made Georgiou exclaim that from now on we will say that heroes fight like Greeks. Editorials and articles in Greek by the Herald were published by the Sydney Morning Herald in Greek and called on all our fellow Australian citizens across Australia to celebrate the Greece Day with parades and celebrations. And later, when the war ended and the Australian soldiers returned from the fronts of the war, and among them the dozens of Greeks and Cypriot comrades, they brought with them the stories of self-sacrifices of hundreds of Greek families from the Peloponnese and Crete who risked their lives and in order to hide them from the Nazis and smuggled them in boats to Egypt to save them. These stories cultivated a bottomless adoration of our fellow Australians for the Greeks and erased any stereotypical prejudice of the past. During the mass migration, the Herald was once again the newspaper that stood for the immigrants with a pan-Australian reach. In every town, village and town, its publishers appointed correspondents, representatives and journalists who were broadcasting from 48 locations within Australia social news in the area, the local political, cultural situation, and of course the sporting events. In total, almost 400 journalists, publishers, correspondents, columnists, members of the technical and administrative staff passed through the premises of Herald, which today, of course, celebrates its 100th anniversary and remains the 8th oldest newspaper of ecumenical Hellenism in the world. Yes. We pay tribute and gratitude to the pioneer fathers of the newspaper, to the publishers who conceived the idea of publishing a purely evangelist newspaper to oppose the royalist newspaper that was the national vima of the time. We honor their memories and their recognition as a memorial attribute, their persistence and their endurance to publish a newspaper at a time when the newly arriving Greek immigrants settled in Australia were barely standing on their feet. The last 55 of the 100 years of Herald life were the work, the labor of love, the challenge and the universal achievement of a man who managed as an innovative entrepreneur with the perspicacity and boldness to elevate the Herald to become the largest newspaper in circulation for the last 3 decades in the entire Greek diaspora. It was Theodoros Kalkos who recognized and reconstructed the Greek media in Australia, the Murdoch of Australia's ethnic press, as it went down in the history, was the one who has first introduced the photosynthesis of the ethnic newspapers and, of course, the colorful editions. Theodoros Theodoros Skalkos printed all the ethnic newspapers that circulated in New South Wales and Victoria: Italian, Serbian, Arabic, Croatian, Turkish, Syrio-Lebanese, political, social, sporting, almost 32 of them. He was the man who brought Greek radio and the Greek television from Greece and set up offices of the correspondents permanently in Athens, Melbourne, and in Adelaide. He was the publisher who, when due to lack of paper, when there was a lack of paper, Murdoch approached him, and Skalkos accepted to publish his newspapers, including the Australian newspaper, and Skalkos published all the Murdoch's newspaper for almost 7 weeks in Australia alone. The Herald Sun, the Herald, the Greek Herald or the Hellenic Herald is the crown of the Greek-speaking press of Hellenism of the diaspora, with dozens of praises, accolades, and recognition. It is this cultural heritage that today is presented in this hall of democracy and legislation, the historic New South Wales Parliament, by his daughter, Dimitra Skalkos, and her colleagues, whom we reverently honor and recognize. We are heading over this legacy with a hope of continuity, the hope that the story of the Greek Herald is not just the history of the Greek diaspora, but it is an integral part of the national history of Australia. We must fight and practice to see the legacy move forward in the coming second century on an avenue that opens up in front of us and in the clearing we can see the figures who kept us standing, from Georgios Marcellos to John Stilson to Alexandros Grivas and his son Nestor to Dimitris Kalomiris, and to now the immortal Theodoros Skalkos and his daughter Dimitra. We must keep this avenue of hope open and support it to exist, to create and to illuminate. We will need to endow Greek Herald to the generations to come. This is the challenge for all of us, a challenge for the Greek community organizations and for the Australian Hellenic business community. And I wish everything, I wish the Dimitra and her staff to continue, and I am honestly appealing to all business community to support the Herald. They need the advertisement. They need the support in order to continue providing this service to the community, and I'm sure that you have both the ability and the generosity to materialize that. Thank you very much.
Professor, and well done on your presentation, and you're 100% correct. For papers nowadays, for them to survive, they do rely on the advertising dollar, and it is important that we keep supporting papers like the Greek Herald to maintain the importance of disseminating the information not only in the Greek community but also to the motherland and also to the community broadly. If I could please ask those people that are speaking in the back of the room, there's only one more speech to go, and it is a person that we should all be proud of, who's continued and maintained the rage in keeping the paper together, and that is a person who's an entrepreneur, who's passionate, who's dedicated, who's hardworking, and is well regarded, well respected. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Dimitris Skalkos to the stage to give the final words of this evening. Please put your hands together and welcome Dimitris Skalkos.
Good evening, everyone. I've had to sit in the room and listen to almost every single one of you speak. So I'm sorry about the long formalities, but bear with us, we're almost there. Your Excellency, thank you very much for being here this evening to mark this occasion, and Minister Kotsis for hosting us. A very warm welcome to all our distinguished guests, who I can't mention name by name, will be here again to next century. Your Grace, thank you. And for those that actually chose us over the state of origin tonight. Had to pick this night, sorry. I'll keep this brief. Tonight should really be about connecting in the same way that the newspaper was originally intended, to connect its community. So please enjoy, drink, share stories, let us know them too, so we can continue telling them through our pages. Tonight still feels very surreal. 100 years of the Greek Herald, an entire century. Very few institutions within multicultural Australia survive that long. Even fewer remain active and connected to the community they were created to serve. And yet here we are. To be honest, I have spent much time buried inside our centenary edition over the past few months that I didn't stop to fully process what this milestone really represents. Looking around this room, it really hits you. This newspaper has become part of our lives in ways far bigger than headlines and articles. For some people, the Greek Herald was the first newspaper they ever picked up when arriving in Australia. For many families, it's simply become part of life, sitting on the kitchen counter, something connecting them to their community, a paper that spoke to them, but for them as well. Since stepping into this role, one thing has continually astonished me. Wherever I go, whichever state I am in, there's always a story or memory connected to the paper. Stories about my father and family, journalists who worked at the paper, relatives who delivered it, advertised in it, worked there, or even featured in it at some point. The stories have been endless and in many ways impossible to fully document. But what has stayed with me the most is the imprint that this newspaper has left. Pun very much intended. Kids lined up outside roller doors of our printing presses waiting for fresh sports results. Young journalists beginning their careers inside our newsroom, a lot of which are here with us tonight. Community leaders telling me that the newspaper helped connect them and their organisations to opportunities that they may have never otherwise found. The Greek Herald has often been described to me as a directory of Hellenic Australians. And then there are the stories that probably were never meant to become public. Our very own MC, Mr. Paul Nicolau, I am told, on one of his very first dates with his now beautiful wife, was accidentally captured, I think on the front page of the Greek Herald, after attending a political event together. Leave it to Paul to take his first date to a political event and somewhere where photographers will be present. And while those stories are hilarious, they also say something much bigger about the role of the newspaper and the role it's played in our community. I think what makes community media different is that newspapers may record history, but community newspapers preserve identity. They serve as a permanent historical record, one heavily relied upon by many organisations today. And honestly, while preparing this centenary edition and event, one thing has been clear. There was no way to simply fit 100 years of stories and people and history into one publication alone. Later this year, we will release a commemorative book developed in collaboration with Professor Tamas, who you heard from earlier, exploring the extensive history of the Greek Herald and the Hellenic community in far greater depth. Because the deeper we went into our archives, the more we realised just how much this newspaper has actually witnessed. It has witnessed migration, political movements, sporting triumphs or failures, cultural evolution, enormous social change, and many disputes. So many disputes. But I suppose that's who we are, a passionate people. At times it's documented history. At other times, the paper has caused a little bit of it too. And if I were being honest, a newspaper that survives 100 years probably accumulates a few enemies along the way, but also some incredible supporters. And that is often the reality of independent media. People love journalism when it celebrates them. People become less enthusiastic when it scrutinises or investigates them. That tension has always existed with media. It's part of the role. What I have come to appreciate as publisher and serving this masthead is just how vast, active and accomplished our Hellenic Australian community has become, both in Australia and abroad. I stepped into this role and understood we had fingerprints everywhere. We work with hundreds of organisations across the country, and the activity within our community is extraordinary. I often joke that I see the Consul General more than my own mother with the amount of events our community holds on a weekly basis. And truthfully, even outside the Hellenic community, if there is a Greek or Cypriot somewhere involved, we will find that angle. We will find that Greek connection somehow. And what is remarkable today is how established and accomplished our communities have become. In politics, law, business, science, arts, and public life more broadly. I have learned there is always a Greek somewhere. But the paper today always reaches far beyond our immediate Greek or Cypriot community. As we publish in English, our stories are regularly shared beyond our own audiences, and many have later travelled into broader or national reporting. We report on multicultural issues, interfaith matters, broader community concerns that resonate far beyond one community alone. People often ask whether the younger generation still care about their heritage. I honestly believe they do. Maybe not always in the same way that previous eras did, but the pride remains and the connection continues. What I believe has helped the Greek Herald evolve is having multiple generations working alongside one another. The younger gens bring a fresh perspective, while the older gens have historical context, wisdom, and lived experience that cannot be replicated. Because how do you know where you're going if you don't know where you came from? Institutions like this do not survive automatically. They survive because communities believe they're worth preserving, and because people continue carrying them forward, many whom are here with us tonight. I want to acknowledge and sincerely thank my team that I work alongside today. So much. As well as the many journalists, contributors and staff that had helped us get here. Also some here with us tonight. Community media today is expected to investigate, report, break news, produce in print, produce digital content in 2 languages, compete across multiple platforms and respond in real time, carrying many of the same expectations placed on larger media organisations without the same scale behind us. It's the late night phone calls, the deadlines, the pressure of getting everything right, and running between football fields to community meetings, back to the newsroom to get the paper out in time. It's always being switched on. We may run lean, but we never thought small. Despite all this, there is also something very rewarding about this work. You witness history unfolding in real time. You meet remarkable people, and you see another side of humanity that people never get access to. I remember one particular conversation with a man whose appointment we published online. He immediately received a wave of congratulations from colleagues and business contacts. The same story later was published in print, and a new wave of calls came through from older generations and community members who had seen it in the physical paper. That's when I realised the Greek Herald is really bridging generations in different ways. This newspaper has produced some award-winning journalism, important investigations, and stories that later travelled beyond our platforms into broader public discussion. Sometimes people expect our newspaper to operate as a PR firm, but we are an independent newsroom. Those are 2 very different things. If a story of ours has ever informed you, entertained you, advocated for something you care about, connected you to a thought or community, made you feel or care about something even once, then that is enough to understand why institutions like us continue to matter. I know this isn't the Grammy Awards, but I have to give quick thanks. It's impossible to thank everybody, but I do want to acknowledge my current colleagues and those from the past, my family and friends who have tolerated me living with my phone seemingly attached to my body at all times. And I could not end my address without acknowledging my late father, Theos Skalkos, not because he was my father or mentor, but because he dedicated 4 decades of his life to this publication and wider ethnic media, helping shape much of what the Greek Herald and ethnic media became and what we know today. This centenary is not about one person alone. It belongs to our community, to the people before us who built something from nothing, and to those that carried it forward decade after decade. Finally, thank you to our readers. Thank you to our loyal and engaged and active readers, to our advertisers, the organisations that support us, who continue to support independent multicultural media when some are disappearing, if we're being honest. The Greek Herald was built by a community and sustained by the community. And standing here tonight, 100 years later, that is something very special. We now turn the page to the next chapter. Thank you.
Three cheers to Dimitra. Hip hip. Hip hip. Hip hip. We are now going to cut the cake. If we're going to ask the staff, the wonderful staff here at Parliament House, to move the cake into the middle of the floor. If I can ask the dignitaries, the Governor, His Grace, ministers, I think Eleni Patinos is here, if others are here.
Staff from the past too.
And staff from the past, that's exactly right. So
Staff from the past.
Staff from the past here. I think Costas is here. George is here. Michael's here. I saw Michael, Mr. Kitties. I mean, there's someone. There, and Costa. Anyone who has anything to do with the paper, if you're a former staffer, designer, please.